are you? Welcome. Welcome back. Welcome if you're joining us for the first time. Welcome if you're joining us live or for replays. And thank you so much for joining us today for Impossible Life. I'm really excited about today's topic, and not just personally, but I think professionally. If you're joining us live or for replays, let us know where you're joining us from. And if there's something somewhere, someone you're trying to meet, somebody you'd like to get in touch with, let us know your gems, your zones of genius. Because as we're talking about networking, it's a reminder really, all of us are just trying to open new doors, whether we open them as an attendee, whether we open them as a volunteer, as a speaker, as a host, as a sponsor, as part of a team, and whether we're doing it in person or online. And I really appreciate our discussions that we've been having about this because, hey, Nathalie, welcome, welcome. Hi from Connecticut. Thank you so much for joining us. And let us know your gems and who you'd love to meet, Nathalie, so we can help introduce them to you. And I'm really delighted because we met in Social Sales Links group coaching in my favorite LinkedIn whisperer, Bryn Tillman. So thank you for that. It's a reminder too, as we're networking live and online, that we're all just really trying to build relationships. We're trying to create conversations, and we're trying to have hopefully really cool connections that are kind of lighting us up as we're trying to build our business, build our teams, or just, strengthen our voices. And in the process of live and virtual networking, really been trying to measure, some of the reflections that happen. And I love it because the light seems to be really changing as I'm saying the word reflections. And today's the word reflections for today. But really, as we're doing it, what are some calls to connect that we can build or share that are kind of personalized or customized? Because they really help us create quality and lasting relationships. And at the same time, as I'm looking back to reemerging recently and live events recently, that there are also calls to disconnect. So, Ari, how are you? Welcome, welcome. Thanks for popping in. Hey, neighbor. Great to hear from you. And I know you normally travel out of the region, so I hope you'll share some beautiful pictures of the coast if that's where you're joining us from. So thank you so much. I think one of the things that I'd love for your help with as we're talking about today's topic, and as we're talking about calls to connect, and in some cases calls to disconnect, and I really try to look at this from both sides. And the reason being, everybody's trying to disconnect, but everybody we meet isn't um, always an ideal client. There, sometimes people can be what we would call a dream client. On paper, they look amazing, perfect person to connect with. Maybe a brand mission you love, brand values, maybe just something that really lights us up about meeting them. And sometimes in the process of discovery, whether it's networking or over time, they're not the best fit for us. So really want to kind of look at both sides of it as we're talking about reflections. We're looking to meet that right fit person, right vibe, right beat, somebody maybe with a shared vision or one we can kind of really tie into. And in the process of connecting and reconnecting at events, I had to figure out what that first live event recently looked like. And it was delightful. We were at the Brotherhood Winery, which is in Washingtonville, New York. It was with an organization, Latinos in Business Succeeding Together, that I love networking with, hanging out with. I really missed some of the people that I had met. And at the same time, it was about 100 people. As the introvert, I volunteered at the check-in table because that usually is the most comfortable place for me. If I'm having an introvert moment, there's a minute in between people checking in and checking out. You have a chance to collect yourself. You're able to network differently. For me, it helps also because I follow up differently. And it being my first, I noticed some different things. I'd love to talk to you about that. I On the check-in table, we were preparing packets of bags to distribute with membership information to guests who came. We were letting them know, where to catch a seat. You could easily see, where to get a flight of wines at this beautiful venue. And Chris, welcome to. Thanks for joining us from sunny Florida. The interesting part about the event was arriving early. I already noticed some things were different. So for me, first live event, I went and I was wearing a mask. I thought about whether I wanted to wear a face shield so that way people would be able to see my face. It's personal choice. I was newly boosted. So, and I thought about wearing a face shield. I would have had lipstick. You'd have been able to see my eyes. You'd have been able to see my smile. People who I hadn't seen in a while be able to really welcome them. And from a comfort level perspective, I decided on a mask. So I was also sitting near a brick wall. We were near the entrance. We were opposite where they were serving flights of wine. Could easily see the restroom, could nearby, and we didn't realize it till later, see this exquisite cake we have to talk about later. But one of the things I realized was the discomfort part, and I talked about that. It was arriving early, which helped, volunteering at the check-in table, which helped, greeting people I adored who I hadn't seen in a while, which helped, working with a new person who I was volunteering with, who wasn't wearing a mask. We were cool. We had our sides at the table. We were doing what we needed to do, and that wonderful person was a sponsor, and she had a team. So it's a variety of networking events, a variety of roles, a variety of goals. I remember years ago, my first multi-day retreat, I had 17 goals. It was live and virtual and hybrid one day. And I was really lucky to hit 13 out of the 17. And then maybe it helps you tweak when you're not hitting a goal. Maybe you needed to change something. Maybe you need more support. But the discomfort part of events, I really understand it, from not being sure if it's the right event to invest in, not being sure if it's the right event to attend. But this one, I was definitely in the right place at the right time on a beautiful evening at a gorgeous venue. What I found was interesting was somebody that I used to network with on a regular basis who didn't usually arrive early. They were rarely there for setup. They were rarely there to lend a hand. And I laughed because that person found out that I was going to be volunteering for this event. And they reached out on social media. And I was really surprised because in the old days, this is the type of person who we did not refer each other. We did not comfortably coexist in environments. A long time ago, I did refer them. I learned over time to send others to other people because I wanted them handled, and not just handled, but really supported in a way that they needed as a person. But enough about that. We weren't the besties, and that's okay because you meet a person, and that's the reality. They're not always going to be the best of friends. We're not always going to be the best fit. And it's the difference of ideal or dream client. They weren't an ideal client for me. They were a dream client. I learned a lot from them. And I appreciate because it really taught me when you go to networking events and you're sitting near somebody who doesn't exactly radiate that positive vibe or that best fit, or you've had some previous experience with, I've learned now, sit next to them. That's my thing. I sit next to them because we don't necessarily have to interact and engage on the same level. I can pass you materials, you can pass them back. Something's needed, we can participate, we can work together. But one of the interesting things I learned was, in a really cool sense, this person arrived early. They were a sponsor, they were a co host, they helped make announcements. They helped introduce speakers. Hey, Michael, how are you? Welcome back. They helped, they had a door prize. They introduced people who were coming to the mic, and they were there to network and really participate and showcase and build their business. And it's challenging. You have a lot happening and a lot going on. And that's the part about the networking with reflections that I'd love to talk about. We have so many different roles at a networking event. And in this case, I watched somebody that night with almost 10 or 12 different goals. And I understood it because I had my own event where I had 17 goals years ago. And I only got to 13, and you can't do it all. No matter how large a team you build, no matter how well prepared you are, no matter how well you practice, it's not going to always happen. We're not going to wake up and feel like Cinderella. And one of the things I learned that night was myself with a mask on, sitting next to a brick wall. I wasn't approachable for the right-hand side. And I need you to know straight up that this person who I am not interested in referring, that I normally don't wish to speak to, that I don't wish to hang out with, who at one point to me was a cyber bully, an in-person bully, and now thanks to positive intelligence, I am so grateful to positive intelligence and chakra alignment, amazing people, to be able to kind of let that go in the universe. What I would love you to know is that person came up to me and kissed me on my right cheek. I was next to a wall on my right. To my left is another person volunteering. There are people coming in the door who we're greeting. And that's what I'd love to say in reflections from a personal safety perspective. Be careful how we're approaching people live. It's the same thing to be careful of how we're approaching them when we're online. Our words matter. Our personal safety matters. Our space matters. Our language matters. The filters that we use, the culture, the vibes that we're exuding. I was in a corner at a table at an angle, and this person came from behind me. I used to be claustrophobic. I'm not grateful. But this person came from behind me that wasn't a walkway. And there wasn't an opportunity to come and enter the door and walk to my right. The space didn't exist. So somebody approached me from behind while music was on, while sound was on, popped up on my right, and decided rather than say hello, they decided they wanted to kiss me hello. They moved my hair. And there was a mask here. And I was wearing my glasses because I was reading and doing flyers. But I think what I'm trying to say is, besides occasionally things that can happen to violate your space or change your vibe or just make you feel a little bit uncomfortable, is that as we're approaching people, and we talked about awareness a little bit ago, and we talked about the clarity and the optics. This person could not have approached me from the front of the table and kissed me hello. They could have approached me from my left side where I could have turned, seen them approaching, and maybe we could have had a conversation. They could have come from the front of the table and said, hey, I haven't seen you in, 25, 26 months. How are you? How's your family? This is somebody who's, I was at funeral services for their parent. So I think when we know each other personally and we're carrying stuff, that's one thing. And for me, I knew this was a person I was going to see at that event. And they're not the reason I wore the mask, but they're the reason why I thought of a face shield. And in retrospect, at that event that I had carefully planned, I attended without any business cards, new business name, be visible with Mel, not a card in hand, confident, great music, great atmosphere. opportunity to get a glass of wine and just chill out and relax. Person did not approach me from the front. It was consistent with their attempts in the past to kind of disconnect. And they made sure we will never, no matter how often we see each other, we will never ever be able to connect again. And part of it is in the reflections, we really have to make each other comfortable. If you're a host, if you're a sponsor, if you're rolling out a carpet, if you're inviting somebody to come to a presentation, think about what that red carpet looks like. What is the feel of it? What is the vibe of it? And what will you leave others with? I mean, the fun part is as we're talking about this, I love it because every other plan attached to that event, including a chance to celebrate, win great prizes, cheer people on as they were winning prizes, share my prize with others was fantastic. Is as we're talking about cool tools, let's talk about great ways to follow up. Normally, afterwards, I have a lot to do on hand in follow up. I decided that night, long night, first time, give myself a break. I did my follow up while I was at the event by checking in on Facebook and tagging some of the people that I was ecstatic to see. Normally, I'd have sat near the computer, I'd have sent direct messages, I would have sent audio and video messages. And I have a couple of handwritten notes I still want to send. But I changed how I followed up, how I reached out afterwards. And that's part two. As you're watching this live or replays, I'd love to know how you're handling those things differently. I was traveling light bag, no business cards, no flyers. It's a very different way to have approached an event for me. I have to really think about it because now I'm working on a digital business card and something that'll share. And as I met people, I encourage them, hey, let's reach out, let's connect on LinkedIn and let's connect on Facebook. And that's what we did. But I would love, as we're thinking of reflections, as we're thinking about how we connect and light things up for other people, how do you personalize it? How do you customize it? And before I mention calls to disconnect, because sometimes that happens, person's not the right fit for us. They're not the the perfect ideal client. So maybe there are ways. Maybe we refer them to other people in our industry. Maybe we introduce them to other people who, on paper, can appear to do what we do. And one of the other ways, though, with calls to disconnect is to stop going to events. I am never going to stop networking with this amazing group, but I am going to think of a way to disconnect because occasionally that's part of the safety strategy of networking. It's part of the how am I looking at it? The choice to attend an indoor event, masked, not masked, whatever. The choice to attend an outdoor event. What I love is attending this live event now has me dreaming I am going to host an outdoor event this summer. So I'll sculpt that, figure out what it looks like, reach out to some people who I haven't seen in a while. Reach out to Charlie Scarrett of Starlights Entertainment. Warning, warning. I adore you. Hey Charlie, let's find some great music. But I think this is reminding me, as part of the reflections and the keeping people warm and welcome, we want to always have that open door red carpet feel or let others people feel it's an inclusive environment. We want to avoid the Uncle Fester part, the Adams family part. You'll laugh, you'll see that on an upcoming video. We also want to help avoiding making others feel unsafe or triggering them in other ways. And as an event host, I'm always really conscious of that. As a volunteer, I am, because 9 times out of 10, I'm there for someone else to help them with their mission and their goals. But I'd love when you have a chance, share some feedback with us on this and really help in our comments. Which calls to connect or disconnect are you using? I welcome the conversation and welcome opportunities to continue it and to chat with you when you have a chance on whatever date and time works for you. And I also really want to thank you very, very much for joining us today for I'm Possible I've. I hope you have a magical, magnificent day and that the sun is shining and that you have a chance to do something you want to do. And I forgot to toast and send smiles across the miles as we're trying to build calls to connect and create relationships. So this one's for you. I hope you're celebrating something wonderful, graduations, noticing posts about communions, and all sorts of really good celebrations. Please keep sharing your joy. And I hope you have a magnificent day. Stay safe, stay well, stay inspired, and please, please stay in touch.